remarkable, innovator, self-made, bold, determined. Nothing was going to stop her. Today, I am taking away gems from Self-Made on Netflix, inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. The first thing I wanted to dive into was just her personal story. There were the Netflix documentary, the inspired by, I should say, story of Madam C.J. Walker was 4 parts. And through all 4 parts, what I noticed that stood out is when she had nothing else, she had her personal story. Your personal story is always something that people will be able to connect with. And when I look at businesses or people in business, sometimes things there is no connection. It's like they're feeding you something, a product or service that isn't true, that a lot of times they don't even believe in. If you don't believe in it for yourself, it's going to be hard to make other people believe you. And when you have nothing and you feel like you're failing, you can always go back to that, because she was able to go back and talk about how she suffered from alopecia, or hair loss, alopecia. And people were always able to connect with that. And just being a businesswoman and asking the women, what do you have? I can help you. I can help you succeed. Let me take you to the next level. And I was like, okay, what is she talking about? She could talk about that because she was self-made, and that was her personal story. There is power in your story. And if you have nothing else, you will always have that. And it's true to you. The next thing I want to talk about is Miss Addie, as they call her in the movie, based on the character Annie Malone. So I'm from the Louvre, St. Louis, so I need to set this story straight. So let's talk about Annie Malone, because Netflix, they did a poor job at the depiction, I personally believe. And there's a lot to be said about Miss Annie Malone, so let's get into it. So Annie Malone was an innovator, a pioneer, a philanthropist. She was a pioneer for Black women. She created jobs. She was a pillar in the St. Louis community. She was the child of 2 former slaves. She loved chemistry, so she was able to come up with, a hair growth product. And she had 2 employees, and they went door to door, selling the product. Sarah, Madam C.J. Walker, worked for her. She created an opportunity for Madam C.J. Walker. In the movie, she comes off as a villain. And I'm not saying anyone is perfect. There was a lot of colorism and a lot of things going on at that time. But she was a pillar for the community. She created jobs for people. Had it not been for her, there possibly may not have been a, Madam C.J. Walker. So she had her own company, PORO, and from that she opened PORO, Beauty College. And a lot of women attended her school, and from that they were able to be business owners. They were able to start beauty salons in a time where that was not even allowed. And her beauty her beauty college was a pillar in the St. Louis community. It was much more than just a beauty college. We're talking about, it had gyms, auditoriums, a chapel, a garden. I could go on. It was a factory. It had classrooms. They offered social services during a time where there was a tornado in St. Louis back in, I want to say 1952, and she took care of like 5,000 people, provided them food. And in the 1900s, she was a multi-millionaire worth upwards of $14 million. So I just feel like they did a poor job, and we're not going to do Annie Malone like that. Today, she is still very respected in St. Louis. We have the Annie Malone, May Day Parade. So I just want people, you have to do your own research and really research past the movie, because, they did what they had to do to create the movie. They added a lot of their own things, and they made these women look like enemies. So I urge you to do your own research into the story of Annie Malone, because she's very important as well. We're talking about 2 self-made bosses in that time. They both deserve their respect. I'm not saying either one of them was perfect, but the story of Annie Malone is so very important as well. Now let's get back to Miss Sarah, Madam C.J. Walker. The title of episode 2 was Bootstraps, and I thought that was important because bootstrapping is a way for businesses to raise capital on their own. So they use their personal finances, personal capital for maybe equipment, space, money to fund the business. Maybe they couldn't get funding, or maybe they couldn't get grants. So bootstrapping is just very, very popular. And we know early on, Madam C.J. Walker had to do a lot of that because, there just weren't investors for her. initially. Obviously, when she blew up, there was, but I just thought that was a really good title. The next thing I wanted to discuss was being bold. If you're a business owner trying to be self-made business owner, you will have to be bold. Madam C.J. Walker was all of that. I noticed when she had the opportunity to speak with Booker's wife, she was on it. She was bold. She had her 15-minute elevator speech ready, and that's exactly what it was. She was so far ahead of her time. And even when it came time for her husband to speak with Booker, which we realized was a mistake, but she even pushed him. She urged him because, you know, he was the man, so she urged him to go speak with Booker. But she stayed ready. She was bold. That 15-minute speech, you never know when your time will come to where you're in front of a person who can change your life. And she was always ready. And another thing with her husband and this whole Booker situation, that was just too good to be true. He met with Booker, and all of a sudden Booker T. Washington was coming to our house. Sometimes, because her husband was like an employee, so sometimes when you send your employees to do something that you really should do, we know there's a lot behind that. Maybe at that time it wouldn't have been appropriate for her to approach him. That's why she approached the wife. But fast forward to today, if it sounds too good to be true, your employee met with Beyonce coming over tonight. Booker T was the biggest influence for her at that time, you know, that could have, you know, helped her business. So you got to fact check and make sure, you know, when he didn't come, she was like, well, what exactly did you say to Booker? I would have been fact checking that from jump. Like, really? He's coming? Like, you got to check that. So the lesson here is just to watch your employees and, you know, coach them. And when something seems too good to be true, it may be. And in this time, we know that women can approach men or women. So if it's someone that can influence you that much, maybe you should do that task yourself. Then we start to see how the guy who wanted to invest $500 in her business, how Bill Bellamy, I can't think of what his name was in the movie, but here he comes showing that, you know, that was his cousin and they have been playing numbers. So everybody is starting to want a piece of the pie. So now we're seeing the first threat to her business, which is true today. As soon as you become successful and people see you starting to get that bag, everybody wants to put a claim on. That's why you have to watch where you accept money from, who your investors are, who you allow to help, and who you allow in your circle, because threats do come when you haven't investigated people fully. Also in episode 2, we start seeing the side chick, which is actually someone who worked for her. It's like, how pathetic are you? So she asked Sarah's husband, did he want to go to a bar and grill, which was inappropriate because you knew that was a married man. But as a married man, he should have been like, no, not because, I think he said he was tired or had a lot to do. No, you don't want to go because you're married. It's inappropriate. Don't come at me like that no more. Better yet, I'm telling my wife and you're probably going to be fired. So we see, you know, she's creeping in. So yeah. And we know in future episodes that's going to come back and present itself. So episode 3 is called The Walker Girl, and she has fully bossed up. She owns the biggest factory in Indiana. She has 5 salons. She has employees and managing, and she's just doing big things. She's going to New York to, you know, better her business and speak with people for different resources. And she's just really in a good place. And when she goes to New York, you know, she has this vision, because all through the series she's having different visions, but she has a vision because there's a lot of colorism. So you see her looking at women of lighter complexion, and her husband in the vision is kind of looking at the employees. And while she's in New York, he's back home cheating basically, and her husband is frolicking with the little floozy. And even his dad has warned him. And I want to say she came to the shop one day and you know, he was like, do you need a ride home? She don't need no ride home. She can get there the same way she got there. Walk. Goodbye. You know, it's just so upsetting because you are my employee. I'm trying to better the lives of Black women, and here you are being just pathetic. And as a man, you have a whole wife. He could have put a stop to that. When the first time she done it, that should have been checked, but it should have been let go. You know, he took the vows. So tell me what you guys think. Who was more wrong? I think he was, because he took the vows. She's accountable too. But I feel like he could have checked that a long time ago and she would have been out of there, you know. Then we see another threat to her business. The same Paloozy who is pushing up on her husband is telling the other employees that they don't need Sarah. They can make their own money. They can do their own thing. And of course she has, well, on the influence in the show was Addie, which I don't know how factual that is, but trying to, you know, take her employees. So that's another threat. Then we have another threat, the cousin who received the investment, basically who got the money from running numbers. It's revealed that that's how he made the money. So we see that threat. And it's just so many ways. And, you know, she's upset because she's like, I have to work even harder. And if anyone knows that this potentially happened, then I'm done. That's another point I wanted to bring up. She felt like she had to be beyond reproach because she was a Black woman, and that nobody could find out that something like this happened because it could be detrimental to her business. And I truly feel like today we really haven't come so far from that. I do feel like sometimes as a Black person, you have to go harder and be better. And, you know, it really shouldn't be that way. We should all have to be, you know, accountable and perform at a certain level. You shouldn't feel like you should have to go harder or be beyond reproach or be better than someone else because of the color of your skin. It's really sad that she felt that way back then, but now a lot of people still do feel that way. And in this episode, it's revealed that he is cheating, which was just really sad to see because she worked so hard. She went on to be a household name. Now, I will say this, even when we're growing our business and we're very busy, we do have to pay attention to our household and take care of the needs of our house. Tell me what you guys think, because your husband has to still be taken care of. His needs have to be met. But if he at any point felt like something was lacking, that should have been discussed. You know what I mean? You sit your wife down. Hey, babe, I need this. I need that. You guys were building an empire together. You know, it's just so hard to see. So tell me what y'all think. Do you think that she should have done more? That it's not her fault that he was cheating, but I do feel like there was a little bit of neglect there, not placing the blame on her, definitely placing it on him because he cheated. But even when we're growing our businesses, because I'm in the same position, we do have to pay attention to our households and what's going on, take care of our men. I know y'all gonna kill me for that one, but I'm sorry, that's how I feel. I feel like husband and wife should take care of each other. You can't neglect each other because then things can creep in. You're still wrong for cheating, but you never want to allow the devil an opportunity. Oh, but I was proud of her because she put him out. She did not stay with the cheater, and I've always said I wouldn't either, so I was so proud of her for being strong. She had some, you know, a little setback, you know, she, you know, went back, you know, a time or two, but it is what it is. None of us are perfect, but she put him out. She moved on. That's a boss chick, and I can respect that so much. Just seeing her story and how, you know, she built this empire, but when it came time to be the boss chick that she was and really stand on her values, she did that. And she got a divorce when it worked for her. She made sure that, you know, her business would be taken care of and that nobody would come after that, but she did eventually get a divorce. Episode 4 is called A Credit to the Race. And sadly, in this episode, Sarah passes out and she finds herself in the hospital. She has to, you know, take better care of herself. She has to do a vegetarian diet. And she finds out she has kidney failure. So for my boss ladies, we have to take care of ourselves. Even when we're taking care of employees and businesses, we always have to make sure we're eating right, that we're exercising, that we're doing those self-care things that will take care of us. Because if we're not okay, then the business is not okay. You know, also another thing I wanted to mention was through this all 4 episodes, you know, she has her daughter, which was Tiffany Haddish. And I love their relationship because she was building her empire to eventually, you know, pass along to her daughter. And I just thought that was so beautiful because that's how you build generational wealth. She was always looking out for her daughter and the people after her. A lot of things happened with Tiffany Haddish's character that I'm not really going to go into. That's a whole story on its own. But if you watch, you can, you know, learn more about that. So she's accused of stealing, you know, Annie's formula. And Annie basically, you know, confronts her. We have that whole battle. And she basically said, you know, I made it better. So that's another point of business. Obviously, you never want to take from someone else. You want to have your own content, your own, because today there's legal ramifications. But in business, it's not always about the person who creates the best product or service. It's about that person who can elevate it, do things better, and reach the audience, tell their story to move people to purchase. So in the 4th episode, we also see how she got the agreement with Saunders Drugstore, which was huge for her because then her product would be in stores. But the women who were like her vendors who were pushing her product and helping her sell, you know, of course they felt some type of way because with it being in drugstores, people will be able to purchase it there and they may not need to go through you know, the different vendors. So in the end, although financially this would have taken her to an even greater level, she decided to continue to back women, and she pulled the Saunders deal and went with, continued to sell her product through her vendors, which I thought was just profound, because so many times business owners and companies, it's all about that dollar. And with her, just to see that she had a heart and she made a decision that financially may have cost, but it was the right thing in her eyes to do for her people. That's one thing I truly like about her, is it wasn't always about her, and she took risk that financially may have hurt her or didn't gain her as much profit as she could have. And that's unheard of today. Most companies are looking out for themselves and their bottom line, because if it don't make dollars, it does not make sense. But she did what she felt was right for her people, because what I love the most is that she was all about her people, helping people, progressing women of color. She didn't want to be the only one making money. She wanted everybody to get that bag. So at the end of the day, she pulled that deal and she continued to go with her vendors, which was just profound, because today that's just unheard of. So in the end, unfortunately, she passed away. For a while, the company went to her daughter. Her daughter never had children of her own, but she adopted her daughter, who tried to keep the company going for some time. So unfortunately, in the end, you know, she passed. But what a profound woman. Madam C.J. Walker. I just take my hat off to her. Just so many gems in the movie, and so much for not only women business owners, but just business owners, entrepreneurs, everybody to learn from, whether male or female. She was just truly ahead of her time. Even though the depiction of Annie Malone was off track, clearly, I do think it was a good movie. And you can definitely go research Annie Malone on your own, and hopefully she'll have her documentary too. But just so profound and an excellent watch. So I suggest everyone watch Self-Made, the inspired story of Madam C.J. Walker on Netflix, and leave your comments. Tell me, what do you think? What did you think about the cheating husband, the little floozy, just anything, any comments. So anyway, talk to you guys later. Bye.